Hey everyone, welcome to Two Crones with a Mic. You will notice there is only one of the crones here from the original lineup. The other one is working today. Bettina has a spirit fair that she's doing. So you get the pleasure of meeting Angie Harris today. And we're moving through this. So we will do, as we always do, we'll start with just a quick grounding prayer meditation. And then we'll have Angie introduce herself, and then she and I are going to have a conversation. Y'all are going to listen in. All right. So I invite you, if it is safe for you to do so now, please do not do this if you're driving down the road. But if it is safe for you to do this right now, just take that moment to close or lower your eyes. And let us focus on that breath, that in and out breath. We remind ourselves that the breath is life. And so when we breathe deeply and slowly, we are telling our bodies that it is safe, that we are safe. It does not need to be in fight or flight or freeze or fawn. We just breathe deeply and we tell our bodies it's okay to relax and to be in this moment. This moment is safe. This community is safe. So staying with that breath, let us feel our feet on the ground or on the floor, reminding our bodies that we're not just in our heads, but we are our whole body. A couple more nice cleansing breaths. And as we move into this time, listening to Angie and her story and all that she has to offer this world, to offer us, let us remember that we are connected. We are community. We are so grateful for that connection and community. We remain open-hearted and open-minded. We leave our resistance at the door. And we move into whatever healing space is ours to move into in this time and in this space. One more nice deep breath in, holding at the top and exhaling. And let us begin. So Angie and I talked a little bit ago, lots of little bits in there. And one of the things we thought we might say is there could be a potential for a trigger warning going on. There's some stuff going on social media in the world right now. And I've been having some experiences around some domestic violence, not personally being a victim of that right now, just, some stories. And so we'll see where our conversation goes. And, but I want to warn everyone that there is the potential for that. And there's kind of always the potential for that for this podcast. And if it starts to feel unsafe for you, then please turn it off. And if you can, come back later. And if you need to, contact your therapist or get the help that you need. So, I want to welcome Angie Harris. Angie, tell us a little bit about you, because that's going to lead to how I met you.
Well, I'm Angie, and I live in Topeka, Kansas, and born and raised here. Attempted to move a couple times, always end up back here somehow. I grew up in a pretty abusive home, and then ended up in religion for quite a bit of my life, and then went into the mental health field out of high school. I went to school to work in the mental health field and was a part of that for almost 18 to 20 years total. And also have a background, like I ended up going to a Christian college as well. So have some background in education of that. And in 2016, I had a very sudden, crazy spiritual awakening in my backyard, and it completely changed my life. And I since moved away from the like kind of the societal way of doing healing and mental health, and now do more intuitive guidance and healing for those who are wanting it. I mostly work with women. I do have men that reach out to me quite often, surprisingly, but that is kind of who I am. I'm an intuitive healer, a medium, and just a very passionate person helping people to step into their power as I continue to work on stepping into mine.
Exactly, exactly. So how I met you was on Facebook, and you had posted in like a Kansas City healers group, if there were any women feeling stuck, that would be me. I was feeling very, very stuck. If there are any women feeling stuck, we we could sign up for a 30-minute reading with you, a complimentary 30-minute reading with you, which to me that feels so very spirit led, that you did that complimentary. That was very, very kind. And I'm actually pulling up, I take notes on everything. So I'm pulling up my reading with you. And so, because I took notes and I did everything you said, because I take this kind of spiritual work very seriously. So
Mhm.
when somebody takes the time and the effort and has that, and they share their gift with me, I write down everything. And then I start to follow through, especially if I know it to be true and it's aligned with who I am. And everything you said was absolutely aligned with who I am. So you did and it was to help me get unstuck. So I'm going to share just a few of the words that you said to me. You said that I had feelings of abandonment and neglect in my life. Absolutely true. That I took on the role of the healer and I helped and I fixed things. That is absolutely true. I have vivid memories of my mother. So, my mother had some undiagnosed, untreated mental health issues as I was growing up. And I would um, constantly comfort her.
Mm.
I was her comforter. And then when I was about 7 or 8, my mom didn't come home one night, and I called my big sister who was living on her own, and I said, "Mommy's not home. It's 11 o'clock at night. I don't know what to do." I was like 3rd or 4th grade. And when mom came home, now I've gone through EMDR, and because you're in mental health, you understand the
Yeah.
importance of EMDR. So
Yes.
when I was doing the EMDR session around this, I realized that I didn't remember it exactly truthfully.
Mm.
What my brain processed was my mom said, "It's really hard to be your mom, and I don't wanna do it anymore."
Mm.
That's what I heard.
Mhm.
But when I did the EMDR, what she actually said was, "Life is really hard. I can't seem to make ends meet. I wanna get you everything I can. It's hard to be your mom because I wanna spoil you. I wanna give you everything, and I can't, and I just don't wanna do this anymore."
Mhm.
My 7-year-old brain heard, "I don't wanna be your mom anymore," and I immediately went to, "That's an option. That's an option. What are you talking about?" And so when you said, that I was the helper, I learned to help and fix things. I learned to help and fix my mom. That I took on the role of who I have been, which is empathetic, kind, and generous, and that I need to balance receiving and giving. That I also need to rewrite. That I have been rewriting, and I'm continuing to rewrite my story of worthiness to get back what I have given, and that I'm constantly questioning. I keep showing up. Why am I not being reciprocated? Lord help me. When you said that, I was like, you're in my brain, because, we're taught in this spiritual work that the universe will take care of us. We just have to keep showing up and giving, and the universe will take care of us. And then I
Mhm.
would get like $20, or I get
Right.
30, and I'd be happy with that. And I'm like, I needed $100, but I'll make do with 20 or 30, and it was you, I believe, that said to me, "You have been accepting scraps for years, for decades. And it's time to step into your worthiness and really trust the universe to take care of you and to give you everything you need. This is another thing that you said. You said, see myself as worthy of what I really want. Um, but what I tend to do is I diminish myself and say, but I'll take the tiny home instead of the mansion. I diminish my worthiness, right? And you said that I'm in this back and forth energy of yes, no, yes, no. And it's all this programming of my performance in the world, the way that I've carried myself, the way that I had to carry myself in order to get my needs met.
Mm.
And you said that when I would be driving around somewhere, probably potentially to EMDR, which was going to be that Friday, that there would be a moment when things switched on and I realized, oh, this is how I get my needs met. And that once I'm aware, I can do the work around it. But once I become aware, it will be completely rewritten for me. And and I will tell you, I haven't quite had the whole like, oh, this is how I get my needs, like that super aha, but I'm getting glimpses of it. It's
Mhm.
coming in. And I'm working every week at EMDR on how that happens. And you said when this program rewires for me, it will clear the fog out of my third eye and my vision will be cleared. And it will be a quick transformation. It'll happen very quickly and I'll be much calmer, more relaxed in who I am. And this will manifest things quicker. So I wanted to, this, it was great. And there's more, but I'm going to stop there. It legitimately hit me like right in the heart, right in my brain. And I was like, you are dead on balls accurate. Like this is, you are so on with this. And that's exactly where I was getting stuck.
Mm.
Because in spirituality, we are taught the universe will take care of you,
Mhm.
but we're never taught how to trust the universe to do that.
Yep.
We are taught to just accept whatever comes to you because it's a gift from the universe, but to continue to give because it's your gift. And there is an expectation in the community, in the world, that why are you charging for these gifts?
Mhm.
Why, I've had so many people go, God gave you those. You should give them back to us for free.
Right.
God gave them to me so I could earn a living using them.
Mhm.
So give me some thoughts around what you just heard and how that aligns with what you're doing in
Yeah.
your work.
Yeah. Well, it's always interesting to hear what other people receive in the readings because when I do them, I honestly don't know what I'm saying or what's coming out. And then it's really encouraging to hear back from people when they're like, oh, and this and this. And like sometimes I'll hear from people like 3 or 4 or 5 months later and they're like, oh, what you said happened. And I'm like, what did I say? I have no idea what I said. And so it is, I appreciate you like having taken notes and, really looked at that because I think that really, that in itself like is allowing you to co-create with the universe saying I'm ready, I'm here, I'm listening, I'm open, I receive the guidance that you're providing because it wasn't me that was giving it was spirit working through me. And I think the more we're open to that, the more we're willing to like be more self-aware and open
Mhm.
to receiving what we need to move forward because things are always talking to us, we just may not be able to hear it.
Tell
And
about that. What does that mean? Because a lot of people are like, what do you mean things are always talking to us?
well, and this is where it gets kind of like detailed and nitty gritty into the like manifestation stuff and us being like everything being a mirror of who we are around us. And if you look in the mirror every single day and you see your face every day, you know only what you look like to yourself. And
It's true.
but you don't know what you look like to everything else outside of you because your mind is programmed to only see a certain way. And the way that is programmed is based on your experiences that you've had in your life throughout childhood, the way that you were taught to believe about yourself, believe about other people, whether you were taught, I can't trust anybody or overly trusting people, whatever that might be. But it even goes into like how you believe about money, what you believe about your worth, what you believe you're capable of doing. All that stuff is programmed inside of you, and we don't see that because we're so used to only seeing from our own perspective. And when we take the universe is constantly giving us clues and ideas of this is something you don't see. And this is what our shadows are, the parts of our personality, the parts of our behavior, actions that we don't see unless we get into a situation or a circumstance that actually causes conflict or contrast for us. And normally, the one thing we want to do is get away from it as fast as we can. We don't want to feel it. I don't want to deal with this. And so we run the other way. But the universe is actually giving us an opportunity to look inside something. And so instead of running away, turn towards it, face it, and send love towards it, because that's the only way that you're going to heal. Like, love is really the only way we can heal anything. And so if we're constantly like striving and trying to force our way through something, or we're not willing to look at those parts of ourselves that keep coming up that don't feel good, then we'll never move forward. And a lot of that, like kind of what came up in your reading, a lot of that does come from our programming of what we went through as children and how we were taught to believe about safety and relationships and ourselves, and how we have any, what our worth is in the world around us.
Mhm.
Which then that goes into the whole reciprocating, like, do I deserve to have income based on what I provide to the world? Like, if this is my calling, yes, it's a gift, but it's also the gift to the world. And the way that the universe works is it always gives back. Like,
Yes.
it's a continual cycle of that. So that's kind of in a nutshell how that all is reflecting to you and what you can use to heal in something.
I love that what you just said. So I'm going to use an example from my life. I'm
Yeah.
going to, as exactly what you're talking about, because I love to use those examples from our lives. So I, I, in our reading, somehow you indicated that it was an event that happened where all of a sudden my brain switched and I was like, this is how I need to get my needs met. And I began to accept just the bare minimum of things. Not only that, you didn't say this part, but what I realized was that I actually became very comfortable being a punching bag
Mm,
in my life. I
mhm,
became very comfortable being a verbal punching bag, taking the blame and the responsibility for other people's mishaps. So at my job, one of or mishaps or mistakes at my job, I inherited a bit of a dumpster fire. We all did. We all kind of, everybody who kind of came in, we inherited this dumpster fire, and I did the best I could, but I was acting from a place of wounding.
mhm,
And I had upset somebody who was pretty high up in my job. And from that moment on, I became a victim, and I got very used to playing the victim role too.
mhm,
I found power in being the victim. And so, she was mean to me and she did this and she did that. And it all came, the culmination of it came in October when she told me we were having a confidential conversation. I told her that I was concerned about three people, that they had some issues coming up in their lives, that I was concerned that they were thinking about leaving, and we needed their youthfulness, we needed their stuff, we needed them there. We needed
mhm,
their gifts and their abilities, and that I invited her to sit down and talk to them and find out what their issues were. And
mhm,
instead, what she did is she walked out and told all three of them that I told her that they were going to quit. And I was astonished, like, what?
mhm.
And then my boss came to me and said the same thing, like, said, that this person, this is what they did, and you need to avoid those people. Those three people were very, very close friends of mine.
Wow.
And there was some personal things said in that too. And I really lived in that victimhood for a while.
Mhm,
And that person, the big person, the main person, they ended up retiring, and a new person came in, and I was still in my victimhood. I was still in it. And recently, um, the same three words that the person before used about me saying that I did not possess those qualities. This person says that I do. They see it, they hear it every single day. And my reputation is starting to change and my belief in myself is starting to change. And I have been doing a gratitude journal. There's an online app that I love that helps you do multiple gratitude things a day, which rewires the brain too. Like gratitude, like I tried doing just sit down and write 3 things I was grateful for at the end of the day. I couldn't do it. I was so deep in my not enoughness, my little bit of depression, and absolutely my victimhood, and trying to get my needs met.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, I realized, oh my gosh, they have given me this really awesome responsibility, not because they don't see those things in me, but because they do. And it was this new person that came in that was like, I hear her on the phone every day. I hear Indira on the phone every day. She has what we need for this. This is what she needs to be doing. And it is all of it, that the gratitude, the EMDR, your reading, recognizing it's all mirroring back to me how I had myself stuck
Mhm.
in this whole victim role at work. And it's healing. And it's not just healing that, it's healing the rest of my life. It's
Mhm.
healing everything because it's all reflected back at us, like you said.
Mhm.
And I wasn't even aware that I was doing that until you said, start becoming aware of how you think you're getting your needs met.
Mhm.
And when I still very much cared about my job, but I stopped caring about what people thought of me and I just showed up and did my job every day. And as
Mhm.
soon as I did that, I was able to see how I was in victim mode and how this empowered me.
Mhm.
It wasn't oh, I don't give a crap. It wasn't that. It was, I have a job to do. This is where I am. This is what I need to do. And I stopped worrying about whether people liked me or didn't because I'd already experienced the worst of it.
Mhm.
I'd already experienced people not liking me
Yeah.
and saying mean things to me and being mean to me. And then I was like, it can't get any worse. It can only get better from here.
Yeah.
So, any thoughts on that thing that I just told you that from all of your perspectives?
Yeah. No, it's really, and that's a perfect example of being able to be self-aware and allowing yourself to go into really uncomfortable places that we don't enjoy. And what's interesting about the victim mentality is a lot of people that are in that don't even know that they're
Mhm.
in it. It's
Yeah.
such a like it is a very protective part of our ego that is programmed into us at such a young age, and it becomes such a cycle for us that anytime we feel threatened,
Mhm.
I what I to explain our ego a little bit, I call it our puffer fish. So if you can imagine the fish in the ocean that puffs up when it gets threatened, that's what our ego does. That our actual like human part of us will flare up and react in a certain way and puff up to keep anything away from us that might cause us to feel uncomfortable or hurt in some kind of way. And that victim mentality is just one of the ways that it does that. And but again, that's such a natural thing. Like if you think of like the actual fish, like it's doing it as a natural reaction.
Mhm.
It just does it because that's what is programmed to do. That's what our ego does. We just react because we're programmed to react a certain way. And until we're able to take out of the understanding of I'm bad, or the whole shame around seeing these parts of our life and making it like it can feel really hard to even admit I am acting like a victim, or
Mhm.
I am, showing up in this way that I don't necessarily like. And then finding your way through that is even harder. And I think that's where people get stuck because they're like, well, I've tried and I've tried and I tried and I can't seem to. And so they go right back into it because
Mhm.
it's what feels comfortable.
Mhm.
And so this is a great example that you're sharing of being able to be aware and actually release that mindset that there's anything wrong, or you're like having shame around that, and actually going forward towards it and rewiring that part of your brain, changing the story about who you are really, and writing a new narrative about that.
And what's really interesting about what you just said is you talk about it's the protective side, the ego.
Mhm.
Mine, because I had so, I've talked to people about this before and, trigger warning. When I was 4 years old, my father raped me and tried to kill me.
Mhm.
And I had to continue to go back into his house where his wife participated, his my stepbrother participated in the act of what happened to me, and I had to go in there every other weekend in the entire month of June for another 3 years.
Mhm.
And there was no one there that cared whether I lived or died, like, literally, and I knew that.
Mhm.
Instinctively, I knew that. So my victimhood, and then there was my mom, who had all of these, undiagnosed, untreated, severe depression, body dysmorphia, and the one that she actually did get diagnosed with was classic narcissism. That
Mhm.
was the one that she actually got diagnosed with prior to her passing, and but mine needs people to, I need to feel like somebody has my back.
Mhm.
So victimhood gives me a sense of empowerment because I will go and tell people my story. This is
Mhm.
what happened to me. This is what happened to me. And
Mhm.
because these people are my friends, they
Mhm.
love me and they're like, we love you. We're going to take care of you. And they hover over me. And they would then watch when things were said and things were done and all that, like in meetings or in the office, that reflected the belief that I was it could exacerbated the belief that I was being victimized. And then
Mhm.
they would hover over me and Indira, we've got you and we're not going to let anything happen to you. And it fed that part of me that did not get taken care of, that was not safe. So it's that
Mhm.
puffer fish
Yeah.
exactly is what it is. And it's like, we're going to make her safe. We're going to go tell everybody. And puffer fish are cute, right? So
Yes.
they're like, my puffer fish is like walking up to my friends at work and walking, going to my husband. And I was like, we're gonna make you safe. We're gonna be okay. And I'm gonna tell them everything and they're gonna love you through it.
Mhm.
And that all makes perfect sense.
Mhm.
Whereas a lot of times people go into fight or flight, right? They'll either run or
Mhm.
they will fight it out. They'll be like, you can't do this to me. You can't talk to me this way. Mine is fawn and freeze.
Mhm.
So I will stop and I'll always have this like pleasant look frozen on my face.
Yeah.
And then I go to everybody and I'm like, did you hear what she said?
Mhm.
Woe is me, poor me. And I would
Mhm.
do that. And I'm
Mhm.
recognizing now, through all this work again, that was a pattern of behavior. So
Mhm.
let's talk about you and I talked, you said that you'd had some experiences, so quite a few experiences.
Mhm.
One of the things that I think that we share, aside from a pretty sketchy childhood, is that we both have been, I think, victims of domestic violence. Am I accurate there?
I grew up in a narcissistic home,
Mhm,
and I saw domestic violence happen with
mhm,
my mom. And then, in my, teens, I got in situations where I was taken advantage of or not treated well.
yeah.
Um, so in some cases, not like I wouldn't say I was actually in a relationship as
Mhm.
an adult with someone, but I did experience a lot of that throughout my life.
So it's probably a little bit near and dear to your heart like it is to Bettina and I.
Yes.
So I shared with you, before there's a video that's going around where, and I saw it on the speech professor, and I always do the shout outs to the people where I see it. So the
Mhm.
speech professor he's on Instagram, he's on Facebook, and he's actually a speech professor at a community college. And he's this wonderful man who constantly speaks on behalf of women, when men are saying inappropriate, icky things about women. And he will constantly comment back. And all these men hate him and they call him all kinds of terrible things.
Mm.
But anyway, this particular stitch that he did was kind of cute in his response. And I know that he's going to come back with something serious. I just know him, watched him long enough. But what it is it's a man on the street asking women, would they rather be alone in the woods with a bear or with a man? And a majority of the women say a bear.
Mhm.
And of course, he's like, have you seen, and there's all these men who are upset and they're like, okay, men who are upset about this. Have you seen the floof monster? Have you seen their faces? And cause he's adorable, and he's often talked about how he's seen like, big cats, the big cats, and he's like, this is how I'm going to die. I'm going to die getting my face eaten off by a floof monster. But the fact of the matter is a majority of the women stated that they would prefer to be alone in the woods with a bear.
Mhm.
And I tried a new hairstylist today, which I'm loving my new color.
Mhm.
And she saw me at 7 a.m. because she needed to get going for the day. She had a couple of people after me, but she needed to get going for the day because they were doing a benefit for her cousin who had been married for 22 years. And her cousin's husband had killed her.
Mm.
And she was a victim of domestic violence. And she had tried to escape, and he caught her and killed her. And so this was 6 years ago. So every year, whether it's on her birthday or the anniversary of her death, they do a benefit, and it benefits Hope House here, which is a place where when victims of domestic violence can go.
Mhm.
I grew up in a house with a lot of physical violence, not just at the hands of my parents, but even step siblings coming in and plates of spaghetti being thrown at dinner and, things like that.
Mhm.
And then my third husband, that I was married to, I was packing up to leave him, and he charged me, wrapped his hand around my throat, and threatened to bash my skull in.
Mm.
And I froze. And then
Mhm.
I went into fawn mode, and I continued to live with him for another 2.5 years until I could escape.
Mhm.
And I had a job. I was financially able to escape. I was mentally able to escape. And while he was at work one night, I put everything I could fit into my Subaru with my two dogs, and I ran.
Mm.
And so um, I bring that up because it's interesting to me how many women um, would choose being with a bear instead of a man.
Right. Right. Yeah. It is that safety that we seek out, and unfortunately, there is not been a lot of safety for women in that relationship with some of the men that we have been around
Mhm.
with, most of our lives. And, as you were saying all that, one of the things I was thinking about was the patterns that we develop. Most women that end up in a domestic violent kind of relationship or home did not have stability or safety in their home as a child. And so they're kind of repeating the same patterns in adulthood that they knew as a child. And again, it goes back to completely unaware and
Mhm.
unknowing, because we only can do what we know we can do.
Right.
And until you know different, you can't do different. And um but I was thinking about, I worked in the mental health field for quite a while, and the last several, probably 5 or so years, I worked I volunteered for the Human Trafficking Coalition of my county. And so I would go to these meetings and talk about like these women or these teenage girls that ended up in human trafficking and domestic violence situations and all these things. And the way that society, or the idea that had been programmed around a lot of these women, was that they were choosing to be a part of this, and that they didn't, they had control.
Mhm.
And so they kind of were made to look as if it was their fault.
Mhm.
And I think that that's how a lot of things feel in these kind of really hard, abusive relationships, really, where the women feel like that they do freeze. They come back into themselves just like a child would.
Mhm.
Like, you protect yourself the way you can.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, the way that we know how to protect ourselves is to withdraw and to hide and to not share,
Mhm.
because most of us that have had experiences in childhood, we maybe weren't believed, or maybe we weren't protected in that time that we did have things happen. So that idea was programmed in us, and then we take that into our adult relationships as well. And really, this kind of extends into any relationship where we struggle with believing that we can be safe and vulnerable and authentic and real and tell who we really are to people, without hiding little parts of ourselves in order to, feel safe. But like, it's really, first of all, listen, I'm really glad that you were able to get out of that. That is huge. It's amazing to, like, I think some of the most amazing women that I know are the ones that have basically left these kind of relationships. I have some really great friends that have left very narcissistic relationships, and and in my understanding, they're some of the most powerful women I know. And but then you still have the ones that are stuck in the cycle and unable to break out of that. Unfortunately, ending up in situations like, this woman's cousin and
Mhm.
stuff.
Mhm.
And I think the sad thing is, because we're so programmed to be quiet, that the outside world most of the time has no idea that
Mhm.
these things are really happening inside. And then when they are shared, maybe sticking up for the man and saying, "Oh, well, maybe you're doing this wrong, or maybe you're making him feel like this." And so you make it feel like it's your fault, kind of a thing. And that just continues the repetitive cycle of being stuck. And I mean, we go back to the whole victim mentality. That's
Mhm.
how you're going to survive. Like,
Mhm.
if I'm a victim, then I somehow, for some reason, our brain convinces us that we stay safe.
Mhm.
And if we're small and are quiet, then we're safe.
Exactly.
And
The
so, yeah.
the things that you said that really hit. So you said that, you know, even at the meetings when you're doing the human trafficking, volunteer work, people would act as if the women had some kind of control or choice in that.
Mhm,
And, and that's why we don't speak up.
mhm,
I was this, I worked in maximum security prison. Um, I did, fairs. I was this, the psyche. I was kind of an elder in the community, and I didn't tell anyone. His family knew, and it was other than his nephew. It was always my fault. His nephew was like, "No, it's him, it's him,"
mhm,
But everyone else in the family was like, "What are you doing to make him do that to you?"
mhm,
And yeah, and it didn't end when I left, it didn't end. The other thing that came to me when you were talking, because you said, we get into it because, we're used to the instability. We become used to that. My mentor had always said to me, one of my mentors had said to me, if somebody feels familiar to you, familiar means family liar.
mhm,
If they feel familiar, it's probably going to be your mom or your dad or both,
mhm,
and you're probably attached to the part of them that is attached to the victimhood. It's attached to their shadow side,
mhm,
their neuroses, all of that. And yeah, my third husband was my mom and my dad combined, like
mhm,
legitimately.
mhm,
So now I want to ask you what your belief system is about women who become healers and having these kinds of either childhoods or backgrounds of abuse and neglect. Do you see kind of, because I see it, but I don't know if you see it, that a lot of people who've been called to be healers have first been to the depths of hell regarding their relationships. What are
mhm.
your thoughts on that?
Yes, that is. True. I think that, and this is one of the things I say often, a true healer is someone that has first healed themselves. And and this is, getting into the realm of like the universe and spiritual stuff and all that. Like our souls do have missions that we come to accomplish here on earth. And um as part of our earthly school, I think that a lot of us kind of end up going through very hard things in our lives as a way of teaching us how to step into our healing abilities. I don't know any true healers that haven't gone through anything really hard at some point in their life that they've had to heal or overcome. But I've also been able to understand that is through that healing process that a healer goes through themselves, that they begin to connect with their own healing ability, that they can radiate outward. And in many ways, it gives the healers an ability to be more authentic and more compassionate and more empathetic and loving. Really, it expands our hearts, which is interesting. The things that should destroy us and make us hateful and unloving and horrible people in the world, we this is how we're healers. We take those things that should make us bitter and angry and the people that are out there doing things that we hurting other people, and we're taking those and making them good, and we're turning them around, and then we're going out into the world and helping others come out of those same things and to heal as well. Um but it's interesting, like I always share with the women I work with that are like going through stuff and healing, like our purpose is in our pain. Our passion is in our pain. Our calling is in our pain. And so the way to get to who you really are is to go into the pain that you've experienced, because that lesson is what brought you back to yourself. And that's where you're really going to be able to distinguish between somebody that is coming as a healer in a way that is, authentically sharing a gift versus somebody that is trying to maybe just get attention, or, there are different things, ways to go about this. But and one of the things I noticed as I moved into more intuitive healing, after working and even in the mental health field for so long, I I in all the years I worked in mental health, I had no idea I was unhealed. I had no idea. I was like trying to help all these other people in the world, and I was carrying around more than they were half the
Isn't that
time. Or,
crazy?
I remember, and it was probably around in my late 20s I really started getting into the work. I would get a case on, come across my desk, and I start reading this story, and things like popped in my head like, "Oh, that's abuse. Oh, that's, all these things." I'm like, "Wait, that happened to me. That happened to me." And so, like, I don't know that I was capable or ready to heal at the time. I think I had to go through the process of being in a place where I was unaware that I needed to heal, and then go through, I think my guides kind of forced me into the to it a little bit, but and then going into my awakening, seeing the difference between a healed healer or a healing healer, because we're
Mhm.
all still working on something,
Yeah.
or the unhealed healer, and how they come out. And I think all healers have the capacity to out on the other side through their healing. But just like you were talking about, like being self-aware, seeing your pattern, opening that up, you have to do that.
Yeah.
So yes, we, in some odd way, we kind of choose not necessarily the pain of it to go through to initiate us into this calling that we're here to do on earth, to bring light and love and hope, in some kind
Mhm.
of way.
Well, we often say that, we quote the Dalai Lama that he said that the Western or that the world will be saved by the Western woman.
Mm,
We say that a lot. And so if and we have women of all ages. I got a message from a kiddo I call her a kiddo. She's probably in her mid to late 20s, I think. Maybe I don't think
mhm,
she's much older. But anyway, she was like, I know that your podcast is meant for older women, but it's so nice for me to see older women who are also a mess still, you know, like me. And so that said, when for the women that are listening, if they still feel messy, if they are, one of the things that we talk about a lot is the women whose kids have moved out of the house. They're now trying to get to know their husband again, or maybe they've gone through a divorce or whatever, and they've worked for 20, 30 years, whatever that looks like. And they're just sitting here going, I still feel valid, but I'm exhausted. And I have been neglecting myself for 20 or 30 years or longer. And I don't know where to start. And I still feel like I have something to give to this world. And I think it's supposed to be healing. And I think it's supposed to be this.
mhm,
What's your advice to them? And especially when they feel stuck, right? Like
mhm,
that's what you said on,
mhm.
on the advertisement that got me to come to you. Like, if you're
Yeah,
feeling stuck,
yeah,
what do you say to a woman who, whether they're in their 20s or their 30s, and they still feel like life is a mess and that they're a mess in life, or they're in their 50s
mhm,
and they're menopausal and they're
mhm.
physically a mess because, the hormones have taken over and, you know, but they feel invalidated by the world because of their age,
Mhm,
size, and their lack of youth, and they
mhm.
don't fit the beauty standard anymore. What do you say to these women that, because you work with women, this is your,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Well, first of all, nobody has it together. If anybody says they do, they're lying. Um,
Cody,
so
that's for you.
even the people that you look like, I have people that, or I have even my clients, like I am fully authentic with them. And I really believe that I can teach through my own struggle. So just know we all got issues. We always will. We're going to be working through something. It doesn't matter. It does get a little easier the more you go into that healing process, and a little bit less like intense, but there's layers. Our life is a layer, and we're going, it's like a spiral. Like we're taking one little spiral at a time and unweaving it. And really the unweaving is all about coming back to yourself. It's all about coming back to who you are, your most authentic self, letting go of all the ideas and programming that you have built up about yourself. And for those, and the women that are feeling like, okay, well, what's next for me, or what do I do, or I feel like stuck, or I don't know what's going on, you're not going to find the answers outside of you. It's all going to come from within. And I think that's where we get stuck, is we keep looking and looking and looking for something. Now, one of the, I always say, you are your own healer, but it's also okay to have help and healing. So we have to release the idea that we can do it alone and do it with somebody, but also understand that if you were to get into work with a healer, I don't heal anybody. I just teach them how to heal themselves. And that is where you will reconnect with who you are and how to move forward in any area of your life, is by coming back to yourself, loving yourself, which is going to feel really selfish, especially for women. We have been taught to put everybody else before ourselves. And when you come back to self, it starts to feel really, really bad in the beginning, because you're like, oh, wait, I should be doing this. I should be showing up for this. This person needs that, all that stuff. But then, like, coming back to self, and you can still serve, you can still give. That's just a natural, intuitive, nurturing part of being a feminine energy here on earth. Like, that is kind of why we chose to be feminine, in this lifetime, to be a service through that feminine energy. But we have to remember that we have to do that for ourselves too. And a lot of times, we don't know how to do that because we have neglected, or we've been taught to neglect ourselves. Something that is popping up in my head, this I wrote about this in my first book, and
Glad
I
you brought up the books. I was gonna bring up the books.
yeah, well, I forget sometimes about some of the things I wrote, but for some reason this is really sticking out to me because it kind of goes with this. I wrote in my first book about an awareness that I had. This was right after I had a spiritual awakening in 2016. I was driving down a highway, and the highway had like two lanes going one way, two lanes going the other way, and it came to a bridge. Like if you were, I don't know, if you were going north, it came to a bridge, and you crossed the bridge going south. And this road in particular, anytime there was a broke down car, a wreck, any pulled over car, anything, the line of cars would line up for miles because you could only exit on one side. And I had been stuck in that line several times. And one day I'm driving the opposite way and I look over and I notice that there's a car with a flat tire at the beginning of this long line of miles and miles of cars. And I had this epiphany of like, oh my God, we literally just follow what we think we're supposed to do because everybody else is doing it. We just fall in line with society and we just do the same thing over and over without even questioning it. And I remember I found myself in that line one day thinking, okay, so I could be could be something bad happening up there. I don't know. Or there could be just another car with a flat tire. And I remember that day, for some reason, my intuition was like, just go, just trust it. And it ended up being a flat tire. And before I know it, I'm going around and the rest of the line starts following me. And it appeared to me, I'm like, one person just has to take a step out. One person has to choose themselves and change the narrative, change the idea that we all have to be walking in the same direction to allow the whole thing to shift, and the people that are meant to come along with you will. And so this is what it's like to start choosing yourself,
Mhm.
to start remembering who you are, coming back to yourself, and not allowing yourself to continue to stay in that same idea of who you think you should be, and then remembering who you really are underneath all the programming, all the ideas, all the experiences, and get to know who you are.
You bring up such a cool point. I'm trying to find it. And of course, my phone isn't agreeing because, and I saw this a few days ago. This speaks to that. Um, Awards that do not exist, and you're trying to win anyways. Most perfect, never said no, rested the least, didn't help, worked the longest, didn't make any mistakes, lived up to everyone's expectations.
Mhm,
And when you're talking about um, that, we tend to just follow along. Those are the things we follow along with a lot,
mhm,
and we deplete ourselves as women. We just consistently deplete ourselves over and over again, in the name of caring for everyone else except ourselves.
mhm,
And you brought it up, and I want to drive it home. Um, you brought up we have to care for ourselves.
mhm,
I have sacrificed because I learned to sacrifice through the events that happened to me. I sacrificed myself for everyone else.
mhm,
And I don't even know how to engage in self-care. I'm still learning what self-care
mhm,
looks like. A lot of us are still learning that right now. What self-care looks like is like a pizza, a cauliflower pizza from
yeah,
Mod Pizza
yes,
and NCIS New Orleans. Right
mhm,
now, that's what self-care looks like.
mhm,
And I'm learning that self-care can look like a lot of other things. But if that's where you start, that's where you start, right? Let's just not get stuck there for years and years and years. But do something that you would normally label as selfish,
mhm,
and or that is not on that list.
mhm,
Something that is not about staying late, saying
Mhm.
yes,
Mhm.
that I just really want to drive that home to women. We are not meant to sacrifice ourselves for
Mhm.
everyone else. We
Mhm.
have a life, and our life is our purpose.
Mhm.
And sacrificing, nobody's gonna give us an award for sacrificing at the end. We're not. The Giving Tree is what comes to my mind.
Yeah. Yeah.
The Giving Tree, and it's the saddest book ever. It makes me cry every time. The
Mhm.
tree gave everything to that boy, everything, and he ended up with, like, a stump to sit on at the end. But
Mhm.
it just breaks my heart 'cause the shamanic
Yeah.
tree thing for
Yeah.
me. So tell us a little bit about your books, and tell us a little bit about your group, because you have a group that I still didn't make it to yesterday because I was in bed.
It's
Actually,
okay.
that's not true. That's not true. I got to go hug one of the kiddos that went through. She's not a kiddo, she's a mom. She's a married mom, but she's still a kiddo to me. She that went through my school. She messaged me yesterday and she was like, "Mama, I'm close to where you live. Can you come give me a hug?"
Aw,
And I
yeah.
was like, "I'm on my way." And so I got done, with all my Friday morning appointments, but I do
Mhm.
still plan to make it there. So tell us about your
Mhm.
book and your group,
Mhm.
and how can people do you do sessions? Do you do coaching? What do you do, and what can they expect? And if you're comfortable talking about the money aspect, they would love to know the prices, because
Mhm.
I think we're all I think anyone would be blessed to have the guidance I had from you. When I that was hands down the best. It really was.
Mhm.
So what can you give us as far as tools?
Yeah. Well, I my so I've written 2 books. My first book is called Leaf Lessons, and the reason it's called Leaf Lessons is because it comes from a vision I had back in, like, 2004, I think. I was, like, 24. I think it's one of the most profound spiritual things I ever experienced, and I never forgot it. And, so it's about a leaf that, is dead and comes back to life. And I have the whole vision written in my book, and it's the most amazing thing. It's about just trusting the universe and healing and coming back to yourself. Um, the first part of the book, I do talk about my trauma and the things I went through. So it can be a little triggering. I do share some details about things that happened to me. And then towards the end of the book, I talk about my spiritual awakening that I went through and how that brought me to where I am now. My second book is called Composting the Ego, and it kind of follows up on Leaf Lessons in some way. It just came to me. I would say that my guides probably wrote it more so than I did. Sometimes, like when I read it, I was like, oh, this is not me. So I take a lot of my experience from being in religion from 16 to about 36, and I write about the experiences of that and how to change our mindset around spirituality, who we are, and like living um, out of like letting go of the mentality of fear towards ourselves or spirituality or a higher power, and working with it and understanding how to love. I had My dad passed in 2020 and from cancer, and so I share some stories about his spirit coming back to talk to me about what it's like in, on the other side, and things that he shared with me that have helped me really move forward in my life. And so those are my books, and they're available on Amazon, or you can get them on my website as well.
Which
Um,
is, like, flashing it's been flashing across for the last hour
AngieHarris.org.
underneath angieharris.org. Yeah.
Yes. And then as far as like my services, I do healing work. A lot of women come to me because they feel stuck. They feel lost. A lot of them feel like I'm supposed to be doing something with my life. I'm supposed to be, a healer. I'm supposed to be doing that. And a lot of times, what people don't really understand is to step into that calling, you have to go through your own work first.
Mhm.
And a lot of people try to jump straight into like, oh, I'm going to be a healer, I'm going to be a coach, or I'm going to be a mentor, whatever it is, which is good. But you're going to get into it and realize that, oh, I should have done all this healing first, because you're going to really crash and burn. Because if you don't have the ability to stay stable in a relationship where you're not being triggered constantly by what you're trying to do with somebody else, then you're not really going to be able to be everything that you can be for that person. And so the one thing that I do in my individual healing with everybody is I take them through the programming of their energy from the time that before they were born, sometimes ancestral or karmic energies they pulled in. So I will take them through the root chakra all the way to the crown chakra. And we will do a focus on that for at least 7 weeks, where we work on the energy. And then after that, I will teach them how to reconnect with their intuition, reconnect with their authentic self, open up their energy to be able to hear from their own spirit team, work with them, get guidance on how to move forward and to live the life that they're here to live, really, without fear, and being like fully authentic in that. And then I do have a Women Awakened community group that I had it last year for quite a while and really enjoyed it. I have a spirit team that I work with, the Wisdom Keepers, and I had been channeling them when we would meet as a group, and the women would ask this spirit team questions, and it was always fun to like hear what the spirits would say through me and stuff. And but something had felt off at that time, and so I ended up shutting it down for probably 6 months and asking my spirit team, what is it that women need? What is it that we really like? I'm supposed to be helping and guiding in. I don't want it to be about me. I want it to be about service. I want it to be about love and community. And I just kept coming back to, as we are shifting into 5D energy, as we shift into new earth energy, the divine feminine, the women are being called to step up in their leadership, and things are switching and changing and unfolding in ways that are going to feel really uncomfortable for the world. And so being able to create a safe community where we can come together and really merge as a web of light, without competition, without fear, without feeling like threatened by another woman's light, and actually enhancing our light together so that we can work on increasing that outward and release, helping the collective release fear
Mhm.
around what is coming, as we move and shift into higher consciousness, is my goal. And all my work is very intuitive. I just
Mhm.
allow spirit to guide me. And so most of the time, I don't really have a plan or idea until that day or the day before, where spirit's like, this is what we're going to do. And I just allow it to happen. Or maybe there's another woman that has something that they need to share or whatever. But it's just a community of supportive light, really,
Mhm.
for everybody, all of us that are called to be in that new earth awakening. Whether you are staying in your corporate job, whether you are meditating all day, it doesn't matter what you do. It matters that you are in your light, because that in itself will help transform the world and release some of the fear that society has around this.
Yeah. I actually see it like I feel like we've come full circle because I feel like part of our job, as the Dalai Lama says, the Western woman's going to save the world, right? She's going to heal the world. Um, Part of our divine responsibility, as we are acknowledging and calling out the toxic behaviors,
Mhm.
part of it is to create a safe spot, soft place for men to land, to
Mhm.
be to say, okay, yep, you were not taught correctly. You
Mhm.
weren't there were a lot of errors in what we taught you and what you were taught by others. That's why you're so angry. That's why you're attacking women. You don't understand.
Mhm.
And so this is our soft space. And no, we're not going to tolerate these things. And also, we're going to love you. unconditionally as you unlearn as well. But we first have to unlearn. It's a little bit like the Barbie movie. We first have to acknowledge that, it's exhausting being a woman under all of those expectations that they have for us, all of those rules that people are asking us to follow, all of those awards that there are not really awards for.
Mhm.
And then we have to deprogram ourselves in order to create a safe place for them to deprogram
Right.
because of everything that we have learned. And so that really did bring us full circle from the very beginning of our
It's so true, it's so true, and I've interestingly had a lot more men reaching out,
Mhm,
wanting to heal, and I've been encouraged by that, but I do see that it's interesting how we women are going to be the ones that help bring the healing,
mhm,
even for the masculine, but
mhm.
you're right, we have to heal our first self first.
Yeah, and that doesn't mean we have to be fully healed,
Right.
because we're never fully healed. You have said that
Yeah.
a couple times, and
Oh, yeah,
I really wanna drive that home to people.
yeah.
I am nowhere near fully healed, but I can promise you I am better than I was 20, 30 years ago. So I think about some of the behaviors I exhibited 20,
Mhm,
30 years ago, and I'm so embarrassed, but at the same time, that's where I was then. I
mhm.
didn't have the awareness and the therapy and all of that I have now. Completely different human being aside from the fact that I am still compassionate and I'm still
Yeah,
kind and I'm still,
yeah.
so yeah, so that's, um, thank you. Are there any parting thoughts that you want to leave anyone here that's listening today? Anything about the work that you do, anything that's coming to you through spirit, anything like that?
Mhm. Um, what's coming to my mind right now is something that I remind myself of quite a bit in this process of being a human on this earth and remembering we're all here going through a lesson and an expansion to come back to self, to remember our divine energy, that we're part of source energy, that we have value basically. And when after my dad passed, he came back to me, and I was really, really, really struggling with a lot of things at that time. And what he said to me in this out of body experience, basically, he said to me, Ange, there's nothing, no one, or anything on the earth that should cause you to be so upset. Because when you come back to this side, when you come back, the only thing that matters is love.
Mhm,
And I carry that with me now, and I share that because without love, we cannot be who we're meant to be. We cannot move forward. And so I guess my parting words would be to remind all of those that are listening and seeking, guidance, to first come back to love
mhm,
and understand that's the foundation of who we are. We are frequencies of love, and without connecting with that love, we really can't come back into safety in our own self or teach or learn or grow. It
mhm.
all comes from love, is where it all comes from.
I
So
love
that's what I
that.
would say.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I appreciate everybody who's listening. I know this is a little bit longer than the podcast we normally do, but we had a lot to say. And and so if people want us to bring you back, are you good with when coming back and visiting again and
That would
trying
be
out some
great.
stuff? Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to end the recording. Thanks everybody for listening. Don't forget to like, subscribe, ring that bell in YouTube, and share the podcast if you love this. And we will see you next week.